kind of in reverse here. We will backtrack and, of course, look at Saturday's action against the Colorado Buffs in the much anticipated showdown there. And Matt, that's what we got, 48-41. However, we arrived at that number. It's not a good optics look for USC. Of course, we all three know it wasn't a standard 48-41 back and forth kind of game. It was under control. USC had it. There was a 1% type chance for Colorado to win that game in the fourth quarter, but there was a 41-point offensive effort put up against this USC defense.
Yeah, so I think the opening statement for me is that, without trying to say anything that hasn't already been said, is that, coaches have a choice in terms of how they call plays, in terms of how they choose to spin certain events, how they characterize certain sequences. And, this could be seen as nitpicking. It could be seen as second guessing. But, Lincoln Riley talked today, Monday, about the Colorado game, reviewing some aspects of this. And the statement that just kills me, he said, the offense needed to do a better job of running the ball and controlling the clock in the second half to help the defense, as though the offense is over there. Lincoln Riley is the offense. He's calling the plays. Like, it's not the offense, it's me. I didn't run the ball. I didn't drain the clock in the second half. We talked about this a week ago after the Arizona State game, 2nd and 3, middle of the second half, trying to protect the lead in Tempe, and you throw the ball on 2nd and 3 and you punt. All right. Here we are a week later, 2nd and 5, midway through the second half, trying to protect the lead. Pass. Like, this is under Lincoln Riley's control. This is his responsibility. And he's normally very good at this stuff. But, he did this at Oklahoma. He would get cute. He would get clever. He would go for the kill shot. Like, I'm aware of this. This is a long-standing thing. Riley tries to go downfield and get another 7 points instead of just taking the air out of the ball, draining the life out of the game. Let's get on the bus, get out of Dodge. And with this Swiss cheese Alex Grinch defense, holy mother of God, Lincoln, run the ball. And I mean, here's the more specific thing to drill deep on. 2nd and 5. Like, if you get just 1 yard and it's 3rd and 4, you can run the ball again. And then it's 4th and 2, 4th and 1. And you have Caleb freaking Williams to get you the first down on 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You can do so many clever things with Caleb Williams. Lincoln Riley knows how to do clever things with Caleb Williams on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. So, 4th and 1, 4th and 2 in a ball control situation midway through the second half, that's not something for USC to avoid. USC should want that. USC should relish that. It's kind of like, the Navy under Ken Niumatalolo. You want 4th and 1. Your offense is built for that. So USC, obviously, you have Caleb Williams throwing the ball down the field, Star Wars style. But in a ball control situation, Clay Helton, 4th and 1 was an absolute nightmare. It was USC's graveyard. It was USC's Waterloo. But this offense, you should want 4th and 1 in a ball control situation, not on a general level, but in a, when you're trying to protect a 20, 14-point lead in the second half, you should welcome that if you're Lincoln Riley. So in terms of your overall approach, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 5, you should be saying run, run, run. And instead, 2nd and 5 against Colorado, pass. It absolutely blows my mind. You should be draining the clock. You should be welcoming the possibility of 4th and 1. And this is something that Lincoln Riley has to take ownership of. And we can talk about the defense. We're obviously going to, for sure. But first off, and by the way, Tim and I did a call-in show on Sunday, got a lot of great calls. And one of the best calls was talking about how really awful Lincoln Riley is sometimes at situational football. We talked about Arizona State. up 6 points, 4th and 3 from the ASU 12. He should have kicked the field goal, because when you can go from one threshold to another, a 1-score threshold to a 2-score threshold, you do that. You cross the threshold. When you're going from 14 points to 17, a 2-score threshold to a 3-score threshold, you do that. Lincoln Riley's not consistent about all those kinds of things. And in terms of continuing this focus on situational football, 2nd and 5, midway through the second half, trying to preserve a lead, it should be run on 2nd down, run on 3rd down, and if you get to 4th down, you run the ball again. And moreover, this matchup specifically against Colorado's undersized defensive line, your whole mentality as a program should be 2nd and 5 against Colorado. If we can't run the ball 3 times and get the 1st down, what are we doing here to begin with? So you should be motivating your players in terms of running the ball and emphasizing to your offensive line, this is our mentality. In second halves, when we get the lead, Caleb Williams can throw the ball all around the yard in the first half to build the lead. I've been talking about this. This is the Steve Spurrier formula at Florida. You throw to get the lead, but then you run to protect the lead. That should be how Lincoln does this at USC. If you are not emphasizing, hey, we're going to be a running team in the second half when we have leads, if you're not emphasizing that, and if you're not calling plays in line with that whole mentality, what are we doing here? And so that is my first point of emphasis at USC this week.
Before we let Tim go on this one, I'm going to play devil's advocate only in a questioning sort of way. So I watched the entire game, but I didn't take note of score versus time versus field position, because those 3 factors play into exactly what you're talking about. Meaning we've also seen teams go in the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where too early in the game, they are shutting down the offense. They are limiting the passing game. There's too much time, and they've stifled themselves. And, they are treating a 2-touchdown lead with, a full quarter left like it's, a 50-point lead with 5 minutes left. They're just run, punt. The other team, they allow to score. And even more so with the USC offense that is, I think we would all agree, the best offense in college football. I certainly think it is. It's certainly in the argument that there is, again, there is just a strategy of measuring those 3 things, the field position, the clock, and the score versus your abilities versus what the defense does, to make sure that you're still being, I don't want to use the term aggressive, but still not completely taking the air out of the ball too early.
Yeah. There's always concern about taking your foot off the gas, getting into an early lead, keeping your team up for it, all kinds of stuff. But that's coaching, right? I mean, you got to have these kids screwed on and tight for 4 full quarters. And that's one thing that, this is struggling with the USC program going back to last year. We talked about not as much the Arizona game, but it reminded me last year. You guys remember the Cal game? USC was walking away from that Cal game. I was in the Coliseum. I was actually leaving the Coliseum. I started hearing cheering from the Coliseum. We were way up. And I was going, oh, there's the touchdown. Okay, fine. We're still up. And then all of a sudden you hear another cheer. And it didn't sound like a Trojan home cheer. It sounds like the Cal fans are there cheering. And USC almost gave that game away. I'm not going to remind anybody about the Cotton Bowl. We're done talking about that. We all know what happened there. But literally USC did everything they possibly could to lose that game. And yes, lost in the last seconds of that game. It's becoming kind of a pattern where USC has a game in complete control. And then for some unknown reason, the fourth quarter just completely falls apart, or is not able to, when you have a team on the ropes like that, to be able to put a team away. And you just need to be able to do that. A couple of things, I think it was tight end delay, brought up the point about Caleb Williams snapping the ball. This was Joel Klatt. I don't know when it came out. I haven't checked it because I watched it one time. I can't bring myself to watch it, a rewatch again with to check his stats. But he basically said that Caleb snapped the ball only 2 times in that second half with less than 5 seconds left. So you have this big lead. You're not, and not only are you not running the ball much in the second half, but you're also snapping the ball with 20 seconds still left on the play clock, and things like that. I mean, think about it. So there's 20 plays, right? And you're not running the clock down. I mean, you get in your head, even 20 times 10, that's significant minutes you're pulling off the clock just sitting there. And while you're playing fast with a lead like that, that kind of boggles the mind as well.
Matt, to that point, I've got a little game film to show Lincoln Riley. It's called the 2018-19 Super Bowl.
Yep, absolutely.
The Atlanta Falcons. They could have been just as aggressive from a play calling standpoint, but if they would have simply used the play clock, it's mathematically been proven they would have won the game.
Absolutely. That's right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, like there does come a point where, you don't need to win by scoring. Like USC was up 48-21. You scored enough. Like it's about limiting the exposure to your defense and to the other team's offense. And I mean, Tim said we're not going to mention the Cotton Bowl. I think there's one thing worth mentioning about it. USC was taking the play clock under 10 seconds in the Cotton Bowl. Like Lincoln Riley seemed to be aware of the need to, let's just minimize the amount of time the defense spends on the field. And I believe the time of possession in that game was, 40-20, give or take a minute. Like it was around there. So he understood that in the Cotton Bowl. But yeah, didn't do it this time. Like there has to be consistency about situational football, just time and score and your awareness. And, like people will say, well, the analytics say in this situation, and hey, I'm not anti-analytics, but there always has to be a limit for, just like checking a laminated sheet and what does like the math say versus common sense. When you're up 6, you kick a field goal to go up 9. Like if the analytics say go for it, you have to shove the analytics aside once in a while, and you have to just look at the game in front of you. You remember that infamous Donald Rumsfeld quote, you go to battle with the army you have, not the army you wish to have or hope to have. That's what we're talking about here. Like Lincoln Riley has his dream scenario, his dream methodology for how he'd like to go about things. But there has to be that discipline of, coach the game in front of you, not the game that you want, not the game that you hope for, but the game that you have. Deal with the reality on the ground. And Lincoln strays from that. Like he wants to win his way. We talked about this with Tim on the Collins show on Sunday. People think Lincoln Riley really doesn't care about winning. He wants, Caleb Williams to win the Heisman more than he wants to win the national championship. No, he wants to win, but he wants to win his way. And he gets very stubborn about that. And sometimes he just needs to be boring. Like, and I'm a Spurrierologist. I keep on mentioning Spurrier references. Here's the other Spurrier thing. Like the reason why the NFL was such a bad fit for Spurrier was that in the NFL, you have to just run the ball between the tackles, drain the clock, get out of town, punt, and you could tell just how joyless it was for Spurrier with the Washington Redskins when he had to do those sorts of things and lean on his defense and all that. In college, though, he was a kid in a candy store. He could let it ride. So with Lincoln Riley, at this elite level, there has to be that awareness of sometimes you have to just be the boring executive. You're the guy in charge of the program. You can't just be, the kid playing with your toys. You have to be a serious adult and just drain clock and not try to score, win the game by just emptying the time clock. There is a certain degree of discipline in certain situations which continues to evade Lincoln Riley, and he needs to get a handle on that before this season's over.